Hi, everybody. My name is Patricia Greenberg. I'm the Fitness Gourmet. Welcome to Eat Well, Live Well, Age Well. All things that are going to help us age well. Today, my guest is John La Puma. John La Puma is a board-certified, internationally recognized internist on all things medicine, culinary, health, wellness, food, farming. John's got a wonderful resume. He's got too many, I keep saying he's got too many accolades to list in one show, but I know John a long time, and I highly respect his opinion. I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of a frame of reference. 4 of his books: Refuel, ChefMD's Big Book of Culinary Medicine, Cooking the Real Age Way. So many of you have heard of that, and The Real Age Diet. You know, their bestsellers have been around for a long time and translated into 8 languages, and now you're over 1 million copies. So that's must be a wonderful feeling that your work is doing well and continues to do well, John.
I'm lucky that way, and actually I'm really looking forward to the work that we're doing now.
Good, good. Now, what we're talking about COVID, unfortunately, it's still very prevalent, still going on. My husband and I are survivors, so I want to learn everything I can about it. And you know, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about what John's doing, but we're going to talk about the immune system first off. And there's a lot of misinformation about that out now, so I'd love that I have you here to clarify some of this. So we're living in a time of COVID, and nobody seems to have a handle on it. It's one of the messages that seems to be universal, though, is that a strong immune system is beneficial in fighting it off, or also in the event that you do contract COVID, it does help with the recovery. So first off, is that true?
Well, first off, congratulations on recovering from COVID.
Yeah, thank you.
To you and your husband.
Thank you.
And secondly, I think you can look towards your own strong immune system for having defended you against it, and Aaron as well. A lot of people are confused about what the immune system is and how it works. And actually, simply, you have, when the body finds invaders, whether it's an infection or a toxin or a cancer cell, it sends out other cells and proteins to try to destroy it. And it usually is successful. We encounter viruses all the time in our everyday lives and bacteria that are not good for us. And the immune system sends out proteins and cells to destroy it. And so that's what's the thought is happening for people who have defended themselves against COVID. Same thing. Find the virus, destroy it. In a small subset of people who require hospitalization and then intensive care, sometimes intensive care, their immune systems aren't working as well as they should. And the disease becomes overwhelming. And those are the people who get put on ventilators. And now we're seeing here in mid-June, even I read this morning, there is 1 ventilator left in Tuscaloosa. And so those states that have not adequately prepared and taken the precautions that we do know that work, wearing a mask and social distancing, are going to, I'm afraid, suffer the kind of public health crises that we were afraid of even 4 or 6 months ago now.
And when, you know, we talk about boosting our immune system to prepare for it, this is kind of 2-part, but first let's talk about what are the steps we can take to boost our immune system?
Well, to improve your immunity against COVID, there are some things to take. I think we should just spend a second about boosting the immune system.
Okay.
There are some people who have already boosted immune systems that you don't want to boost any further. People with autoimmune diseases, specifically type 1 diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and more unusual syndromes as well. Their immune systems are kind of already on overdrive when they've sent out cells and proteins to attack other viruses. Those cells and proteins never quite drop down once the invader is taken care of. But for many people, you want to activate your immune system, destroy the virus, and then have the immune system go back to its normal state. And the things that can help that are in foods and in dietary supplements and in behaviors. Um, the kinds of behaviors that work, interestingly, are ones that have to do not just with social distancing, but with nature. And being outside in a forest actually improves your natural killer cells. Um, the studies have been done with as little as an hour outside of a forest. Natural killer cells are just those cells that take care of viruses and bacteria. It's thought that the phytoncides, the little chemicals that are emitted from leaves in forest, improve your own immunity, but no one really knows why. Gardening, as you know, many people have done that here in COVID, and soil contact also seems to improve immunity, maybe from bacteria that are released from the soil and interact with your own immune system. Those are two quick ways environmentally to improve your immune system, and I recommend time outside to people, especially those of us who've been cloistered inside. From
John,
an eat,
can I just ask you a quick question about that? Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
So I live in Los Angeles. It's a concrete city, but there are parks here. Can I benefit
yes.
from just going to the public park and walking out there as well?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And of course, you can have a windowsill garden or a garden on a kitchen table
Okay.
or a garden in any backspace that you have. I've started gardens in everything from hay bales to parking lots to truck beds to rooftops. And that's actually how you garden in an urban setting. And I lived, as you know, in downtown Chicago for many years. And I had a rooftop garden and a garden made of railroad ties outside my front door, and windowsill gardens and a cathedral window garden. And just the contact with plants seems to not, they may or may not purify air in small quantities, but they certainly do enhance beauty and remind you of awe and being connected to some other larger thing than what's right in front of you now. And those are some of the ways psychologically that nature is thought to work on both the immune system and the psyche. In food, the kinds of things that we know against influenza virus and against Ebola virus, which are related as their viruses, and Ebola directly related to COVID, include foods that are rich in quercetin. Quercetin is a flavonoid, a phytochemical that's active in the body, that's in onions and apples and other strong tasting fruits and vegetables, that tea that transports zinc into cells. That's how quercetin works. And you can eat onions and apples, or you can take a quercetin supplement. They actually have been both tested against viruses. It's probably the chief primary recommendation. But green tea also has strong antiviral activity. The studies have been done with 4 cups of 4 ounces a day. If you like green tea, that's a great way to keep drinking it. If you don't, I'd recommend trying it. Berries, particularly dark berries, blackberries and black raspberries, have antiviral activity as well. And the usual recommendation is half a cup a day, but any way you can get berries, the better. Blueberries are delicious and also dark. And they're also relatively easy to grow, all of those plants, if you have a little space. And then finally, garlic has been an antibiotic and an antimicrobial for centuries. Studies have been done with both the extract of garlic, particularly black garlic, and fresh garlic. And although you need a lot of fresh garlic to improve immunity, it is nevertheless something that tastes really good and is part of a healthy lifestyle. And then I should finally mention cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are arugula and watercress and broccoli and cabbage and turnip and collard greens. And they're called cruciferous because when they grow, they bloom into a 4-pointed cross, like a crucifer. And they have strong detoxification properties when you eat them. But when you cook them, that detoxification function goes away because it takes away the enzyme that activates the enzyme in you. The way to get it back is to is to add a little bit of fresh vegetables. So if you're cooking collard greens or cabbage, you add a little bit of fresh to the cooked, and it reactivates that enzyme so that it works in your liver to detoxify poisons as well as to detoxify other attackers that the body sees. These are 4 or 5 ways that you can use in eating and in supplements to improve your immunity and defend yourself against COVID.
So it's the combination of raw and cooked cruciferous vegetables and berries. Is there any no-nos? Like, for example, we eat blueberries constantly, strawberries, cherries, blackberries, always in the house. John doesn't have to sell me on this. And of course, every night we have something cruciferous. I think I told you this years ago, I put a big pot, I call it bowel evacuation soup. And it's got black beans, cauliflower, broccoli, tomatoes, every kitchen sink, garden. It's a garden variety of absolutely everything. And then I will throw some raw on top. The combination, is it okay to combine it with other things? For example, throwing blueberries in yogurt. Does that negate it? Does that help it? Is it, I like to get.
Actually, blueberries in yogurt is probably a great idea,
Okay.
not just from a flavor standpoint, but also if the yogurt has a little bit of fat in it, it helps you absorb some of the anthocyanins that make blueberries blue, which otherwise are not really fat, not soluble, and you'll gain more from them. It's like eating, it's like taking your vitamins D, E, A, and K with a little bit of peanut butter or almond butter or avocado, because you'll absorb the vitamins D, E, A, and K better because they're fat soluble. The same thing is true for the anthocyanins in blueberries and in blackberries and in raspberries and in every other kind of berry. It's just the principle is called bioavailability. I wrote about this in the ChefMD culinary medicine book, where you eat something and then you want to enhance your absorption of it. And the way to do that with carotenoids and with colorful plant chemicals, as well as with vitamins D, E, A, and K, is to eat a little bit of healthy fat with it. That's why when you have a spinach salad, you want to eat it with avocado or with an olive oil dressing or another full fat dressing, because you'll absorb the lutein in the spinach, which helps to protect your eyes from macular degeneration, the leading cause of blindness in people over the age of 65. So in fact, you get 7 times as much lutein, and you get 6 times as much lycopene, which is from tomatoes, when you eat a full fat dressing on that salad. Plus you get the deliciousness of avocado and of olive oil.
The one thing I want to talk about with you extensively, if we can, in the second part of this, is the benefits of what age you start this. So, a lot of people feel, unfortunately, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, it's too late. And I think it's never too late. And I wish that all of us, we all know this, we all wish our parents fed us like this from the time we were born throughout our young lives, because I know there is a point where disease can set in due to age. There's age-related factors. It's just a reality. So at any age, John, we can take this on and there'll be benefits. Is there a point at which it is too late?
My experience is my own patients at 80, 85 develop strength, flexibility, stamina. They are more active than they were in their 60s when they begin to integrate this into a lifestyle program that works for them. It has to work for you, as you know, it has to fit into your schedule. And that can be, as you're not necessarily playing singles tennis when you're 85, but actually I have 2 patients that do. You might be doing Tai Chi or Pilates. You'll be doing a lot of walking, cycling. I have a great patient who cycles long distance and who's 83. But they didn't get there overnight. They either decided that they wanted to become more active and more healthy and live the rest of their lives in a more healthful, aware state, often in community. And one of those things that these patients have in common is that they have good friends. And that kind of spurs them on and gives them a sense of support around being active, whether it's going to a class at the Y or it's or gardening in your backyard, and in eating better, not just eating whatever is convenient or whatever is delivered that might not be the best choice. A lot of these people often have gardens actually and may eat from their garden. And that's a really interesting thing to me, that that kind of beauty and awe translates into the what's on the kitchen table.
Yeah,
So I agree, Patricia, it's never too late.
it's never too late. And also that we keep hearing again and again that sense of community, of having people and having a strong, solid support network in anything you're doing. So even a little bit helps, right? Just that little bit. How do you encourage people? I find when I talk to people, sometimes a person's only going to do what they're going to do. They're only going to do what they're willing to do, what they like to do. And so what are some ways that you can help motivate people to take on these behaviors to develop that strong immune system? Specifically people, who are diabetic, who have arthritis, that, we're told often when we go to the doctor, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. You'll just have to take an Advil or you'll have to take your insulin, whatever it is. So what are some ways we can encourage people to take that on? Baby steps, just to start out.
I, my view has always been that there's a whole nother set of skills, techniques, and body of knowledge outside of traditional allopathic medicine that people can take advantage of. So I always regard advice from that's discouraging about lifestyle change as just sort of incompletely informed. Physicians often don't mean to be discouraging, but they just don't know that there is this whole nother world of nutrition, of acupuncture, of even chiropractic, of exercise and fitness and exercise prescription, of nature therapy, of many different kinds of animal assisted therapy, ways to approach that fit into how you think about life. So baby steps are do what feels good. When have gotten people off soda, you put an ounce of soda in the bottom of a 12-ounce glass and you fill the rest of it with club soda. So you're still drinking soda, it's just dilute. And then eventually your taste buds go, you know what, I don't need it this sweet either. And you're interested in club soda and lime instead. So so if you're not feeling like walking 2 blocks, walk 100 feet.
Okay.
If you're not feeling like lifting 10-pound weights, lift 1-pound tomato cans. If you're not feeling like doing yoga, call a friend or join a class so that you feel obligated. And that class now can be by Zoom. And check in with other people. They tend to be a big support, and they don't have to be family if family isn't supportive. And a lot of people, especially when they're older, begin to choose their family differently, which I think is wonderful. You find and take love where you find it. So almost always it's try a little bit, see how it feels, try a little more.
Yeah, and I love the concept of forest bathing, right, is the kind of the technical term for it, that going out, and in LA, not now because of quarantine, but is that there's tours that you can go on hikes. And, that's something you can do alone, you can do with other people. I'm always encouraging that. And I appreciate that your thoughts on getting it anywhere, even in the middle of a big city. Just go to the park and walk under a tree-lined street. It makes all the difference in the world.
It does, and even better in the park itself instead of the street if you can.
Right.
The forest bathing, as you know, is Shinrin-yoku, a term formed in 1982 in Japan, where they've done extensive studies, much better than in the United States actually, about the immune benefits of the forest. And they have to do, it's thought, discuss the natural killer cell activity, but the fact is that when you're in nature, you use your senses. You see things, you hear things, you touch things, you may even taste things. And that kind of resets your brain so that you're using your parasympathetic nervous system instead of your sympathetic nervous system. You're using your digest and consider nervous system instead of the fight or flight nervous system, where you're always turned on by notifications. You're always kind of have a list of stuff to do. But nature and forests make you think of that differently. You tune into sounds and sights that allow you to not ruminate. The prefrontal cortex, and it's been shown by MRI studies at Stanford and other places, turns off so that you don't obsess, ruminate kind of the negative part of that obsession about whatever is going on. And instead, you let yourself be drawn by nature. You have what's called a soft fascination instead of a direct attack or interpretation, which we constantly get from car alarms, and you can become easily immune to yourself by
Yes.
not hearing very
Yes.
well.
Yes.
So yes, I recommend forest bathing, and sometimes it's better to go with a guide because they actually can point these things out to you. But even, and there are, as you point out, a Botanic Garden and Garden Club and city parks here in Santa Barbara. The Botanic Garden offers forest bathing as well. Lotus Land isn't quite there yet, but they're getting there. And I think it's a great balm to the anxiety that COVID has created.
So let's all get out and maybe put in a windowsill herb garden, or I think March is tomato season. Go to one of those tomato manias or go to your local your garden supply, and they will sell you seeds. They'll sell you seedlings, and there's clubs everywhere. So go look those up. And that's fascinating information, John. I need to do it more myself. I keep saying I have a brown thumb, and I let the gardeners plant everything. But when I go outside, I feel really good when I do sit in my backyard, for
That's
sure.
what counts.
Yeah,
You're out
yeah.
there. You're out there. You're
Maybe I
with
don't
nature.
physically have to put it together, but it's there, and I'll go.
Yeah, I mean that you're lucky that way. And actually, I used to have a brown thumb when I lived in Chicago, but it's really interesting that as time goes on, you begin to notice more things about how nature works, and you get to work with it instead of fighting it. I just read last night an essay by Elaine Ingram, who's a famous microbiologist and very interested in what she calls the soil web, how the soil works underneath and the bacteria and fungi work in it to improve immunity for plants as well as to nourish them. And she says that when there are bugs on the plants, the bugs aren't really the problem. The bugs are telling you there's a problem with the plant and with the soil. And it's a really interesting way to rethink that it's not like you got to spray the ants away or pull off the scale or crush the little tomato worms, although that doesn't hurt. You got to figure out, or someone has to figure out why they're there, because it's usually an imbalance in the soil and or a lack of nutrition or an overnutrition or a lack of water or an overwater. But it's a really interesting kind of puzzle. I mean, it's a lot like clinical medicine, in which you figure out what's wrong with someone or how to get them better by observing, for the most part, and listening. And nature teaches that you as well.
And I think it helps you be less afraid of what's going on around you. There's,
Right.
a forest can be an unknown, and sometimes there's a connotation with it scary. But once you get in there, it's the most beautiful thing. In closing, I'll share an experience. I ran the Avenue of the Giants 10K. So I ran 6.5 miles through the redwood forest.
Wow.
And it was raining and it was cold, and I just was sucking up the air. I went really slow, and I was stopping and taking these deep breaths in the middle of the redwoods. And when I was done, Aaron came to meet me, and he was climbing trees. And at first I said to him, "You're 70 years old. You're going to break your leg." He says, "I'm 70 years old. If I want to climb a tree, leave me alone." And it really changed my perspective at that moment. I said, yeah, let him go climb a tree. If it twists and it falls, he'll be okay. It'll be fine. And it was one of the best weekends we ever had, because we
How
just
lovely.
could breathe so deeply and feel so good. So
The Dutch have a term for that. It's called umlaut or something like it. And it's that exact experience you've had of being in the wind and having the wind fill your lungs and feeling kind of exhausted, that it's so windy and rainy, but also energized. And it's become part of their um, a vernacular that people recognize as a therapeutic activity, exactly in the way that you've described. It's really interesting.
So John, thank you so much for joining us. That was very informative. Always wonderful to see you. And of course, we're going to see you again in the not too distant future. If you want to get in touch with John, it's chefmd.com.
Yes, that'll get you there.
Okay, that'll probably be the best place rather than giving out too much information. John is available nationally. You can just reach him at his website and get in touch and get some more information about wellness and being healthy as we age, and hopefully we'll all live to be a ripe old age. So thank you, John, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Patricia. Great to be with you.